As a fragile Easter ceasefire unfolds in Ukraine, political maneuvering on all sides raise doubts about genuine intentions. With Kyiv tentatively backing a Trump-brokered peace plan and Russia insisting on territorial concessions, global tensions remain high. Meanwhile, Serbia and Republika Srpska angle for influence through Moscow ties and strategic offers. Joining us today on TVP World to unpack these developments is Marcin Zaborowski, Europe's editor at TVP World. Now, with his extensive experience covering EU policy, Russian strategy, and transatlantic relations, he brings us vital context to these rapidly evolving developments. Hello, sir. Welcome to TVP World.
Hello, Ben. Good to see you.
So this Easter ceasefire, now when it's being announced, I think everyone is quite skeptical about the developments. What do you think the intention behind it is? Hard to imagine it's a sign of goodwill. Do you think it's international PR, or are there some other plans behind it?
You know, judging by the success or a lack of any success, in fact, of any former ceasefires which were announced, I think it's quite clear that what we are dealing with here is only an exercise in international PR, as you put it very rightly. This is all about sending a message to especially the global south, to tell them that I want peace, I'm the man of peace, I want to give my co-believers a pause in this terrible war, which I'm not guilty of. That is what Vladimir Putin is trying to tell the people around the world, and some of them will probably believe it. We all know that none of the ceasefires have worked in the past. There is no reason why this one would be working.
All right, speaking of Russia and violating its ceasefire, of course, like you mentioned, it's not very consistent, and a lot of people are talking about it sort of like a buffet system where they take the kind of ceasefire that they want and leave the rest behind. Is there a case to be made that perhaps this ceasefire is also a broader plan to kind of strategically violate them when necessary from the Russian side?
I really think that this is just like, they make these announcements of ceasefire in a sense that we have something to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is really just a PR exercise.
Right.
There's nothing material or tangible about it. Yeah. They will not cease fire. They will continue to shoot and murder people, and that's what happened in the past. This is what happens when one state wages a war on another, when occupies the territory of another state. Whenever they announce ceasefire prior to that, they actually increase attacks on civilian population. As we could see with the attacks on Sumy, on Odessa, and then on Kryvyi Rih, actually now civilian population is targeted.
Yeah, so again, I think it is correct for the Ukrainians to be very skeptical of it, and of course we here at TVP World will keep an eye out on the situation. Now, when it comes to Ukraine's acceptance of Trump's proposed peace deal, they say there are 90% accepting of the framework. Do you think that's going to shape the dynamics of the negotiation going forward, with like largely kind of being on the same page now between Ukraine and the United States?
Well, all of that is really part of negotiations. Negotiations are going on. The Ukrainians are trying to say that, look, I mean, we are not a troublemaker here. We are compromise-minded. We accept 90% of Russian demands, and we are on board here because they know that the Americans are threatening to walk away from all of it. They're also threatening they're putting more pressure now on the Ukrainians than on the Russians. So the Ukrainians the Ukrainian diplomacy is coming across here as being constructive and open to make a step forward, and that's in itself is not necessarily super meaningful. Like I said, it's just it's an exercise in negotiations. In the same manner, we might say what the Americans have been saying, that we are tired of all this thing. We are prepared to walk away. It's not our war. It's the war which the former President Joe Biden supported. Right. The current President Donald Trump keeps saying, I didn't start it. I had nothing to do with that. It was all Joe Biden's war. It's not my war. Right. So the Americans are trying to put themselves in a position, move themselves from being part of the conflict to be a mediator. And that's not working out for them too well. And so they are preparing an exit now. And that's obviously not great news for Ukraine. That's why you see Ukrainians saying, you know, we accept almost anything, but just few things we don't accept, for example, the Euro territorial concessions.
Right. You mentioned that it's an exercise in negotiation. Is there a possibility that this rhetoric is also maybe Trump camp's attempt at having more leverage in this negotiation? In Trump's book, Art of the Deal, he does mention that the person with the ability to walk away is the one that holds the most power. Is there a possibility that this rhetoric right now is another way to force the two parties to actually come to some conclusion?
Well, yes, except that, I mean, clearly the Russians, they don't have to have a deal now. So the Russians will not be scared by the prospects of Americans walking away, because that means they outweighted the conflict, they outweighted the Western support. The West has proven to be fickle, as the Russians have been predicting all the time. The Americans have changed their president. The current president no longer supports Ukraine. So the Russians can simply wait. The Ukrainians cannot afford to wait. That's why they want to clinch a deal right now. But I think we all have to reconcile ourselves with the prospect that the United States will no longer, sooner or later, will step away from this conflict and from supporting Ukraine. And Ukraine will have to, and it's not the United States, but the European Union, the EU will have to take the responsibility for the bulk, if not all of the support for Ukraine, because it's in Europe's interests.
Right, that's also something that I'm curious about. What does walking away actually mean, right? I've been asking various people. Some believe that it does mean that walking away is actually walking away with all the support as well. Others believe that there might still be some status quo there when it comes to some form of support, but just walking away from the negotiation. What's your take on this?
Well, we have already seen steps in this direction with the Americans, like ceasing, then limiting aid to Ukraine, then leaving the hub at the border between Ukraine and Poland. And basically, there is absolutely no indication that when the current package, which was approved, aid package, which was approved and processed by Biden administration, when that package expires, that they will be followed up by a next package of military support for Ukraine. So that means walking away, essentially. No longer American aid going there, no longer intelligence sharing, no longer any money, flowing to Ukraine, and the United States saying, this is not our war. We are tired of it.
And at the meantime, we also see Russia already kind of seeping its tendrils in other parts of the world, because I would also like to turn our attention to the situation in Republika Srpska, where Milorad Dodik's lithium for relief gambit is perhaps playing into broader Russian influence in the Balkans. Do you think that it is somewhat connected right now?
Well, it is in a sense that the world has traveled, but you can buy Donald Trump. And the world has traveled, that you can basically buy the American support, and you can use whatever unscrupulous means you have at your disposal to get a deal and to have a cooperation of the Americans. And Dodik, who is convicted by the International Crime Court, is essentially a fugitive from justice at this point in time. But still, he can still appeal against the ruling. So, but it's he does not cooperate with international justice, and so he's essentially saying, "Look, but I can offer you these wonderful minerals if you protect me."
Right.
So that really is almost like a mafia boss kind of move.
Paying protection fees. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of people are seeing the United States now as a more kind of transactional form of foreign policy.
Yeah.
Another thing that comes into my mind is also the negotiation with Iran that is supposedly having the mediator being Russia itself. So do you think that's probably something that Russia is also pursuing in order to maybe gain some favors with this negotiation on the Ukrainian front?
Well, the Russians are playing a global game.
Okay.
So, like, obviously the Americans are doing the same thing. So when it comes to Iran, that is something which is of far more importance to the United States and to the American closest Middle Eastern ally, meaning Israel. That is just something where the interest and the engagement and the attention of the United States may be growing. And Russians are holding some cards there. Right. Especially when it regards things like cooperation on the development of the nuclear projects in Iran. And so they're kind of signaling to the Americans, just give us a space where we have our interests, meaning in Ukraine, and we can be cooperative in some other fields.
Now, last but not least, there's also some interesting move made by President Zelensky that I want to pick your brains on, because recently he's also trying to connect China's support for Russia in his war against Ukraine, because, there's a lot of talks about perhaps Trump is pulling away from the Russian-Ukraine conflict to focus more on the Indo-Pacific, namely China. So do you think that by highlighting that everything is all tied together and you can't deal with China in isolation without the involvement of Russia is kind of Ukrainians' way of trying to keep U.S. engaged and involved in the situation?
Well, I mean, interesting that you mentioned that, because it's like a lot of analysts are saying that actually China would read the United States pulling away and losing attention with regards to Ukraine as an encouragement to pursue more aggressive policy towards Taiwan and other parts of East Asia. Because that means that the United States does not really take responsibility for the security of its allies.
You can just outweigh them.
And of course, Ukraine is not a de facto, is not a de jure ally, because it's not part of NATO. But it is a friendly country which wants to become part of the West and which has cooperated with the United States on a number of issues, including now also in economy. They are signaling that they are very happy to sign not very happy, but they are prepared to sign the mineral deal. So if China sees that the United States is not paying its share of responsibility towards the allies, it might be encouraged to pursue bolder policy towards these parts of Eastern Asia where it has some aggressive intention towards.
Right. Thank you so much for helping us understand that. A lot of moving pieces all coming together, but really appreciate your insight, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of World News Tonight. Before more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.